Forget the motherfucker. Can Kick-Ass and Hit Girl defeat Jim Carrey? You're watching Beyond the Trailer's review of Kick-Ass 2.
I'm gonna make Kick-Ass pay for what he did to my dad. I'm building an evil army.
Who is this guy?
He's claiming to be the world's first real supervillain.
My daddy made me promise I'd never stop defending this city. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
We gotta make this right.
The anticipation's killing me.
Considering the PR bomb that exploded in their faces right before Comic-Con, I was delighted that the press line for Kick-Ass 2 was the best one I attended out in San Diego. Turns out that as much as Jim Carrey doesn't believe in this film, citing over-the-top violence, his co-stars do, or maybe they care so much because he doesn't. Everyone from star Aaron Johnson to Christopher Mintz-Plasse to John Leguizamo took their time to intelligently and emphatically discuss the film with each outlet. But you know who wasn't there? Chloe Moretz, aka Hit Girl. If you think it's odd for the arguable breakout star of the film and comic book not to be in attendance promoting her sequel at the biggest genre event of the year, well, you're not alone. MGM and Screen Gems' Carrey was also left alone on the stage at Fanboy Prom, forced to rely on a multitude of posters scattered around the city instead of its flesh and blood star. Rumor was she was busy filming The Equalizer, where she stars opposite Denzel Washington's retired CIA officer turned vigilante as a young hooker who I bet you money ends up fighting beside him. Wait, is she stealing Mark Millar's moves, or is that Natalie Portman's? Looks like Moretz is turning into the baby Angelina Jolie she'd always hoped, but in vain, predictable ways to boot. Although even Jolie has always realized the importance of promoting her films, all the way from Tomb Raider to Salt, both at Comic-Con and just this past weekend at the D23 Expo for Maleficent. Does Moretz feel she's got Kick-Ass 2 in the bag, simply not care, or fear a Jim Carrey backlash? After all, she took most of the heat last time around, as it was her swearing and violence as a little girl that offended mainstream moviegoers, which the media ran with. But even if Moretz isn't willing to own Hit Girl in real life, how about on the silver screen?
Kick-Ass 2 is a pretty good movie, and some people might even think it's a great movie. But the reason I say just pretty good is because it's not at all the movie I was expecting or the movie that I wanted to watch. And that's because it has gone mainstream. I think clearly as a reaction to the way people took in the first film, the Kick-Ass producers and writers and Mark Millar and Jeff Wadlow have decided to make this film something that's more palatable to a wider demographic. But it makes me wonder if maybe those mainstream people just wouldn't be interested in this film anyway. So genre fans and fans of the first film like you and me might be like, hey, you totally left me out, so now I'm not interested either, and Kick-Ass 2 is left with no audience. So we'll see what happens. So how is it mainstream? Well, there's things like, for instance, that almost the entire film takes place during the day. And when it's not daytime, it's in a very well-lit room, which I think is a very odd choice for a superhero movie. I mean, when you take a look at the lighting and the camera movement as well, which were very, very run-of-the-mill, very mainstream, it wouldn't be out of place to say this was shot like a television movie. It almost like Teen Beach Movie, Disney Teen Beach Movie, Percy Jackson. This could be on that level, I think, to some degree. It was made to be, very accessible. They just plant the camera down and let the film unfold in front of it, which is disappointing to me because inventive lighting and camera angles are not really a budgetary concern. It's just how far the director is willing to push his imagination and his crew. And so to not go there always is disappointing to me, even for a mainstream film. I mean, Steven Spielberg picks really great, dynamic, compelling shots, and he still is able to win over the biggest mainstream audience of all. So when I was watching this movie, I thought it was so odd that Jeff Wadlow was given X-Force off of it. I was watching it, and that was in the back of my head, and I was like, this is a huge mistake. Who would pick this guy for X-Force? So I'm curious to know what you guys think, if you think he's a good choice for that film. But also, the other mainstream quality about it is that they've totally made the Hit Girl storyline kind of a superhero version of Ferris Bueller, which I can see why they would do that, but I don't like that they did that. That's kind of like how this movie goes for me. I can understand why they made every move that they did, but every time, I kind of disagree. And my biggest complaint is because of these new restrictions and this new direction they've gone in, Kick-Ass 2 never reaches the sophistication or inventiveness of the first film. For instance, that sequence where, I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't seen Kick-Ass 1, but where Big Daddy coaches Hit Girl through that strobe light action scenario, that was just one of the best things I've ever seen. That's when that film won me over. And also the follow-up assault on Mark Strong's headquarters also is never duplicated here. I mean, they try to, but they really don't. And I have 2 spoiler comments that I want to make, but I'll make those at the end. As far as the acting goes, the acting and the directing are all very well done. And I think that's because, just because I didn't like the directing doesn't mean he didn't. Jeff Wadlow delivered. I think he delivered what they decided they wanted here. And I think everyone got on board. I think the actors got on board. I think everyone decided to sacrifice what they maybe perhaps liked about the first film in the effort to try and get a more successful film. You can't really fault them for that, or for trying at least. And also, I thought that was good. As far as Jim Carrey, I thought he was good. I don't think he did anything he should be ashamed of. I respect that he is, but I don't think he has any reason to be. But I can see also where he was coming from a little bit. I think that, Kick-Ass's defense has always been by putting superhero violence in a real-world situation and showing the repercussions. That's where it's responsible. But I would argue that this film does not show the repercussions. And sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. So it doesn't show those repercussions, and by putting this violence in a real-world setting, it makes it seem more achievable. So that is concerning to me. And just like you have people following Christopher Mintz-Plasse's character in the movie, inspired by him, it's worrisome that people will be inspired by watching the film in real life. To get a little meta here. But you know what? It's a solid film. I think it's worth checking out just to see what was done to it and to understand how a franchise might try and play more by the the mainstream rules. But just go in knowing that you're not going to get the first Kick-Ass. The only time it comes close to that is Mother Russia. That actress really committed to that role. She did a fantastic job, and she was really a force to be reckoned with, and believably so. Her scenes were both impressive and terrifying. I thought she was by far and away one of the most standout characters in the movie. So, spoiler comments. Spoiler time. Spoiler warning, just in case anybody doesn't get it in time. Stop watching now if you don't want a spoiler. Okay, I had a big problem with the fact that Hit Girl was no longer as good a fighter as she was in the first film. The whole point of the first film was she was kind of like this child prodigy superhero, and that's what's so impressive about her. But in this film, she's not. She has a lot of problems fighting Mother Russia, and I was disappointed in that. They really kind of tried to show her as like a little girl who had a lot to learn, and it was in over her head. And I guess maybe they were trying to make her more vulnerable, but that's not the appeal of Hit Girl. The appeal is that she's practically invulnerable. And I thought it was a very bad message that at the end she needed to take that adrenaline shot to win, because that's obviously, a metaphor for steroids. Someone could misconstrue that as that, or I think accurately construe that. So I didn't like that aspect at all. And also the other problem I had is that there was a big speech when she said, tonight when we go and take on these villains, she told Kick-Ass, she said, real people are going to die. But no one did. I don't think anybody died on either side. And I thought that was really, especially when you have a character make that kind of statement really clearly, how could you not deliver on it? I think that's incredibly irresponsible. So that's my thoughts on the movie. Also, I wanted to tell you, I still think that Kick-Ass's costume looked okay, but Hit Girl's costume really needs to be reworked. I think that it was really cute on a little girl, but I think that having not only a cape, but a skirt. I mean, talk about, everyone says you should wear a cape as a superhero, but when you add a skirt, it just gets ridiculous. But with the wig, the page boy wig, the cape, and the skirt, it all cut her off, and even the knee pads, it cut her off at really unflattering levels. And I think that it just wasn't a good look. I think that it worked on a little girl, but I think that if they make a Kick-Ass 3, and I don't know if they're going to, I have some concern about how this is going to go over. I don't think it's going to have the cult fan base of the first one. They really need to redesign that. So, and Mark Millar, you're right. You said you want to do a Hit Girl origin story or something. I suggest you fast forward into Hit Girl as an adult superhero, and I think that's where some work needs to be done. Because Chloe Moretz isn't going to de-age; she's only getting older. So I think that Mark Millar should work on that. So that's my thoughts on Kick-Ass 2. Write your own down below. I hope you enjoyed my review, and I hope you'll check out these other episodes right now.